Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar. Before I start, can you all please raise your hand to make sure you can hear me? Wonderful, thank you very much. Well, welcome to part one of this webinar on searching within SYSPRO. I hope it will be of use to a lot of you. In this part, we'll cover a lot of the configuration, and in the second part, we'll talk about more about utilizing the search a bit more. Okay, so my name is Nick. I'll be taking this webinar today. I'm a consultant at K3 and I explore all the worlds of SYSPRO. So let's go through it. Okay, so why is search important? So why have we taken on this opportunity to put on this webinar? Well, obviously, user experience is key. Finding the information within your ERP system is hugely important in getting both jobs and tasks done. It's all about influencing your customers, or in this case, your end users, making sure that they can get from A to B and influencing them along the way. Hugely important. We hear about all the statistics about being on the top of the page and on the Google search engine. This is just the same. So by making things easier to reach, this whole system becomes easier to use. So today, what I want to talk to you a bit about is a journey from then to now. So I'm going to start not all the way back to the Encore days. I'm going to start in the 6.1 days and talk about some of the searching that was introduced then. And then I'm going to take you all the way through to SYSPRO 8, where we're sitting right now. We are then going to go on to customizing the searches and showing how you can make them more customizable to your business. And then we'll talk a little bit about predictive search that's been introduced, and also about search governance, which allows you to actually tailor the searches based on user roles within the business. Okay, so in 6.1, and the basics of search, where you've got the typical browse, but they also introduced something called enterprise search. Now, this wasn't widely adopted. I've not seen it on many sites, but essentially, it allows you to search throughout the entire SYSPRO system and match on key phrases or words, and then use those words to hyperlink through the system. So what does that look like? This might be familiar to some of you, or not all. Here I can search on the bicycle term, and a criteria on the right-hand side is brought up, which allows me to click and drill down into these areas. So this is accessible from 6.1, SP1 onwards. So if you're not using this, this is all available to you to start adding, and I'll go through how we can actually add this now. Also in 6.1, search windows were introduced. These allowed you to override the default behavior of browsers within SYSPRO with a search window, which wasn't restricted to, let's say, the top 20 rows. You can see on my example here, I've got 428 rows displayed, and it allows you to put more robust search criteria into the browsers. Again, these were massively adopted, and that's why we're seeing more initiatives coming through from SYSPRO. SYSPRO 7, we finally saw something called predictive search introduced. This is quite massive now inside SYSPRO. Within both forms, toolbars, and grids, this can be accessed. So any area where the keyword is set up or configured, you can then start typing into the area and bringing results back into the system. And this is, again, entirely configurable based on your business needs. And we'll go through that a bit later. Enterprise search went through a bit of a redesign to make it a bit prettier from my former slide. Here, you were allowed to search on particular areas, and also some copy functionality was added in. And obviously, we've banged on about this throughout the last 4 or 5 webinars, insights. You can use insights to also drive searching through the business and driving those tasks. So taking an insight, drilling into it, and then using the links within the insight to get through the system. And I'll show you again how, or a few use cases of how that might happen. There's an insight there. And finally, in SYSPRO 8 today, obviously with the indoctrination of Avanti, there's a search configuration within that, which can be used to tailor down and also influence the browsers. And this looks a little like this inside of Avanti. So on the left-hand side, I've got my search criteria. On the right, I've got my result sets. Again, this is entirely configurable. So within this, you can actually add your own custom form fields or other areas of the item that you want to search on. And on the right, you've got your results, which allows me to drill into the programs and show more or less items than that's in there. Okay, so let's go through a bit of a demo. So I'm going to start first with enterprise search being one of the first things that's been brought into SYSPRO. So enterprise search, I've set mine up already. It looks a little like this. Okay, now this is very simply added. Simply within SYSPRO, you right click within the toolbar. So if you're in the program list, you right click and use customize panes and you click add enterprise search. Now this can be added to any program, but I find it's best used on the home screen. So once that's been added, this pane will appear and you can dock it where you like. And you're given a lot of presets. So let's leave it at all for now and show you how that works. If I search for a stock code or a phrase, it can bring back multiple results from different areas of the system. So within here, I've got all selected, which means I'm showing me any purchase orders with that stock code that's open, any sales orders, and also stock codes. And I can click and drill into that further. From here, I can hyperlink and get into other areas of the system. I can right click and also copy the values if I'm copying it into anywhere else. I can configure this search myself quite simply by hitting the settings. And in here, I can add my own search criteria, which can search on particular tables within SYSPRO. Here's one I configured earlier. So you click the add button here, which will then give you a new row, and then you can give it a description. In this case, I've called mine my purchase stock code. So what I'm looking for here in this use case is any items that are on open purchase orders. I've given it the table it's looking at, and then I've given it the columns I want to return. Within there, I've got my conditions, where it's complete is not equal to what yes, and where the stock code is like my search term. Once that is done, I can simply save, and then I can return back to my search and use that search within here. So I've got no purchase orders with that item. If I move it back to my A100, you can see I've then matched again. So again, this is available in 6.1 onwards. It might look slightly different in older versions. That's the only catch. But using the all is quite powerful in terms of searching the entire system at once. Okay, I'm now going to show you slightly onto the Avanti search configuration. I'll show you predictive search in a moment. Okay, so Avanti, it looks like this. I'm sure we're familiar with it now. Within here, we have a new program called Search Criteria. Here, I can copy standard SYSPRO searches over and then configure it myself. So within in my system, I've got a job search, and these are the search criteria I want to bring forwards. And this is really powerful in terms of what I can do. So I've added the job classification, and I've given it a checkbox all, okay? So I can delete that, I can add more, and I can make the search even based on custom form fields if I so desire by clicking add, giving it a name, and then choosing the table I want to search against and the particular custom form column. Now if I use job query, I will just first log out and back in so the change can take effect. and then I'll use job query to demonstrate that search being applied. So I've got my classification, which I set as checkbox, which will then filter on the left, and I've got my custom form, which I set as text, which means I can put anything in there and search, depending on the values it matches on. So again, this is how Avanti is now configured to set up for searching. So really configurable. Within that, I had to do little to no pro coding or anything, which is really makes it really quite powerful. Okay, another thing that was introduced in the earlier days is something called hyperlink and exceptions. Now, hopefully we're familiar with what hyperlinks and smart links look like inside SYSPRO. On the left, I've got a clickable link. It's quite recognizable because it's blue, and when you hover over it, it underlines itself. And when I click on that, it brings up a context menu, which shows me a list of programs I can jump to. Now, I've been onto many sites where customers don't fully utilize this. They'll instead exit a screen and then go through the main menu to get into another screen and then copying the values between the two. For better use of this, you can really engage your power users and make sure they are actually flowing through the system as it was designed. So let's have a few things that I have seen this useful for. So I've seen it useful for accessing inventory movements in a much quicker fashion. I've seen it for receipting purchase orders. And I've even seen it on a more advanced level, linking back to application builders if you have them in your business. So I want to show you those particular a few of those use cases in action. So within the standard SYSPRO program menu, in administration, there's a program called Customize Hyperlink Exception. Okay, a very fancy name, but essentially what I'm trying to do is add new hyperlinks. Before I do that, I just want to show you one of the part of it is the smart links. So smart links are when you click on a link and hover over it, you'll see a icon pop up. I'll show you that in a second in use, but essentially you can turn them off in this menu if you don't want particular users getting into using it to jump across into screens that you're not particularly using within the company. Against my customized hyperlink then, I can create my own hyperlinks. So first of all, it needs to match on a caption. So these are used within list views. So when I hover over this particular column, as long as the column name is called stock code, what I'm going to add in here is an option to jump into the inventory movements program as an adjustment. So I'm going to call it adjustment. Now the program name, you can browse to find it. I've noted it down already, is Info 10. Then I press OK and save and exit. Just a little quick hint while I'm there. Within inventory, to get the program name that you want to jump to, you can click in and press Shift F7. That'll give you the program that you want the program number to get into, that they can then set up the hyperlink with without having to use the browser and searching for the correct program. So now I've done that, any list view that has the column name stock code should have the option for me to link into the adjustments. So demonstrating this, I've got my hyperlink, which is below, it's underlined. I've also got my smart link, which is indicated by this icon. This icon changed from SYSPRO 7 to 8. I think you'll do a slightly different arrow in SYSPRO 7 and pre that. So now I click on that, and you notice my new option, adjustment, has become available. By clicking on that, I can jump into a program. Okay, so actually it's jumped into receipts at this stage. I'm actually going to go back and tailor that so I can actually access the same program from here. I'm going to change my existing one, and I'm going to pass it a parameter of ADJ, which will mean it will jump to the adjustments section of that. So let's see if that works. Adjustments, okay? So by using the hyperlinks, I'm able to jump into programs from within a different program automatically without having to exit all the way back out and forget where I'm up to. So that's really powerful and super easy to set up. Okay. One big thing that was introduced in SYSPRO 7, port 22, I believe, is predictive search. And this has only got better since. So predictive search is the ability to start typing phrases into the toolbars within SYSPRO or form entries or grids to start rendering results, which you then can click against. This is completely tailorable. So first of all, how do I turn on predictive search? In administration and system-wide personalization, there is an option to use predictive search that must be ticked on. Once it is, it becomes available to you. There's one other little setup in system setup where your WCF service must be set up, but that would pretty much always be set up by default during the installation of SYSPRO. Okay, now inside inventory query, I can drill into my predictive search. So by simply typing in, I start bringing up relevant phrases that match what I'm typing in. So that can be on various different things. Within here, I can also configure it to show more rows, just stop showing images and go further into the configuration against this particular item. So within the configuration, I can actually choose what I want the predictive search to match on. So in this case, I've actually added my own, which is matching on a style custom form field. So I can simply click, re-engineer this to also match on a separate field within multiple tables that link to the stock code record. So if I look for my in master plus table, I can look on any of these particular items. So you might use this to search on sizes or diameters or anything like that to help you kind of go through the system and find things easier. And simply do contains text, just copying the above criteria and make sure your parentheses are closed. Once I've done that, I can save, and then I have to exit SYSPRO and come back in to make the changes take effect. Okay, so now I've done that, I'm going to go back into my inventory query. Now I'm just going to demo because I've not set up that custom form with any values against any stock codes. I'm going to use the pre-existing one. So if I start typing in BMX, which was one of my styles, it'll search, it'll find any information that comes through as that matches on that phrase. So again, this is how you can tailor it to your business. So if you have custom form fields, you can match on anything that you want, and you can further configure it to also do to search on more fields at the same time using this criteria down here. Also quite important is that you can use predictive search and turn it off against particular items. So sometimes it could be a nuisance when you've got it turned on for warehouses in sales order entry, for instance, but I can turn it off against the form so predictive search doesn't show up and distract the user. So it can be really configurable against toolbars, forms, and data grids just by simply switching them off. Once I've done that, it'll no longer show up as an option. Click off that, hopefully. No more does it start showing the predictive search against the toolbar for stock code. Okay, so that is predictive search, really powerful, easy to switch on, and very configurable. One little thing that not many people use inside SYSPRO is the search governance. And this is the ability by operator or role to tailor what certain access the operators can get to. And this can be done within these criteria here by warehouse, by AR branch or AP branch, bank. There's quite a few little things that you might want to stop users actually viewing within SYSPRO, and also disabling them to actually use those warehouses. So if you want to stop an operator from always adjusting stock in raw materials, you can do that. Quite simply go into setup and operators, and against your operator, you'll notice down here you've got something called access. So access control can also be determined at role level, so you can do it at a higher level than this. From here, you can choose what type of access you want to grant. So in this case, an allowed list for warehouse means they can only access FG. What's also really good about this is that it will filter reports and browsers based on this allowed list. So they won't even be able to see the presence of another warehouse. I can do the same for branches, which can stop some operators from adding sales orders for particular customers. So again, a really quite a powerful way to do that. So now I've configured my Avanti user here to only look at warehouse FG. I will just show you how that kind of looks. So I'm currently logged in as admin. If I do a movement and I browse on my list of warehouses, I can see multiple warehouses. If I log out and log in as my user, once I set this up and go through into movements, because he's only allowed access to FG, the browse list will be filtered only down to FG, which means he can't access any other one. And if he tries to type anything different, he'll get access denied message. So again, you can start tailoring down your warehouses or branches by operator or role, which gives you a lot more control over what operators are able to do within the system at a much granular level. So really quite powerful. Okay, so that is the first iteration of searching within here. In terms of configuring it. So I hope this has been useful. Go away and try some of these things, and hopefully on the next webinar we'll go even deeper into this and show you how you can use insights and application build to link the searches together in a much more refined manner. So any questions, please add them to the questions section and I'll happily answer. Thank you very much. Okay, no questions, so please feel free to send them onwards later if you prefer, but I will end the session now and hopefully I'll see you next time. Thank you all.